Welcome, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me on this lovely podcast.
It's a pleasure.
No, it is a pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure was all mine.
And mine too.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about...
How long is this podcast?
Like an hour, 45 minutes.
Really? That's the nice thing about podcasts, they're a bit longer.
Yeah, and it's all just us
It's
talking.
quite indulgent, I think, podcasts.
It is slightly narcissistic when
Yeah.
you're doing it.
I know.
But that's why people have tuned into this specific episode.
Right. The most narcissistic thing I've ever done, and I genuinely believe this, the most narcissistic thing I've ever done is I listened to a podcast of myself talking. I can't believe I did. I'd never.
The whole thing.
I would never usually do that. I'd never, if I go on TV, if I do anything, I never rewatch it. Never rewatch
You listen
it.
to... Is it just you talking?
If I hear a song of mine on the radio, I turn it off. Like I can't bear it.
Really? Do you cringe?
I cringe.
Same.
But I listened to an entire episode, an hour of me on a podcast.
What were you talking about yourself?
I was talking about songwriting. But do you know why?
I do.
Even though it's not on your sheet of things to ask about.
Maybe it is.
Is because I was listening to the podcast in general. It's a songwriting podcast. And I wanted to compare if I came across well.
Well, I hope you'll listen to this one.
I don't think I will. But
Well, I find that quite offensive.
you find that offensive? I definitely want
This is
to.
not just about you, it's also about me.
Right. I see.
Just
I see.
Welcome, Tom Odell. Now, I would like to know, like taking your mind back, way back, I'd like to know what the first song you ever listened to was. And maybe you won't remember that, but the one that really struck you the most.
The first song that ever struck me the most.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, I have a terrible memory.
Well, this is going to be great.
It's going to be a long podcast.
Put your personal diary with you.
Yeah, those kind of questions I find very difficult. I'm always also slightly suspicious when people are able to answer it like that.
Right.
Because I'm like...
You've not really thought.
I think people, they adjust it to make them sound... they've worked out what that song should be. I mean, can you answer that question?
Well, I would take it back to the first record I ever bought,
Yeah.
I think. And I remember being quite young when I bought Queen Latifah, UNITY.
What a record.
What a record.
Yeah. Mine was Oops, I Did It Again.
Pretty spit.
Which explains
Classic.
our art.
Yeah.
You're a lot cooler than I am.
Well, to some people, maybe you're the cool one. So did you grow up in a musical household?
No.
Something that you picked up?
But it was present. It was present more in my grandparents and my uncles and aunts. Both my grandmas on both sides played piano.
Right.
One of them had this big pianola in their living room.
Wow.
So it's like big upright. And if you pump the pedals, it plays itself. You put this manuscript in. They invented like late 19th century.
Yeah.
And you put the manuscript in, you pump it, and then it'll play. It just blew my mind because it was like, what is this magical machine? And so I desperately wanted to play. And her mum had been a professional pianist. And then my uncle played.
Yeah.
Nick. And then my grandma on the other side played. But apart from that, my immediate family loved music but didn't play.
So the inspiration for you to get behind the ivories was from...
My grandma, really.
Yeah.
She took me to piano lessons from about the age of 7 in Bognor Regis.
Okay. I don't know why I always laugh at that place. That
Yeah,
name.
well, it is a funny place.
It's a funny name.
And it was just down the road from where I lived. And it's where Harry and Meghan went the other day. The whole town can't believe it. Famous for its butlins. But she took me to this lady every Tuesday. And she used to love baking, this piano teacher.
Okay.
Wonderful, like, wafts of baked goods coming from the oven.
Nice.
In the kitchen. And I'm sure that's what enticed me to keep coming back.
The baking.
Yeah, she was really nice. And I did that for a few years. Because the first few years when you learn an instrument are really hard and not that inspiring. You're just trying to get to grips with it. But it's all just like learning a foreign language. It's like really uncomfortable.
So does your grandma think you're good then? Is she critic?
My grandma was, she was great, but it's sad actually because she died when I was quite young.
Okay.
I guess I'm sad in some way that she never got to see sort of like the fruits of her sort of labour because she would have been very proud. She was always, she liked all that sort of entertainers. And,
creatives. And
like that. She was.
She definitely would have been, I think.
Yeah.
So you credit her for getting you into music?
Yeah, I think so. And my other grandma as well.
Yeah.
They lived further away, but they actually bought my first piano when I was about 3 or 4 years later. which I think is great that they didn't get me one straight away. Like, I had to really beg them for it.
You had to earn it.
To earn it, yeah.
They knew that you were serious at that point.
Yeah, I think that was like a good move by them.
Yeah. I really like the story of when you first started writing and that you shocked yourself. The spider on the windsill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How old were you then?
I don't know. I mean, I think with the spider one, I was a little bit older. I was probably like 14, maybe 15. But I vividly remember writing my first ever song. Like, that memory is like so clear in my head. Or like writing the first melody, and that was when I was 13. And I ran into my parents who were watching TV in the other room, and I was like, I think I've written a song. And I played it to them, and they were like, oh, that's really good. And I remember like it was like Alice discovering the other world, you know. It felt that sort of like dramatic.
What was it about? Do you remember?
It was kind of just about the stars or something.
Okay.
If I had a keyboard, I could have played it to you.
Really?
Melody, yeah.
Oh, wow. That's quite special though, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was like 12 then, so it's like young, or 11 or 12, like, maybe younger. I can't remember. It's weird, like the age thing, isn't it? I can't remember how.
But it's stuck into your mind so much so that you could sit and play it again. And you probably, you don't really play that song at all, do you?
No.
No,
I never finished it.
Will you ever finish it?
I tried to once. It's very simple.
Okay, it's not good enough now.
No. Sometimes I do think it's the best one I've written. I don't know.
How do you doubt that?
I don't know. I think songwriting's a weird thing. I don't think you necessarily get better at it.
It just is.
Yeah, I don't think you get better. I think you, without sounding like really cheesy, I think there's this like, it's how in touch with, I don't know, I wish I could articulate it in a way. There's a skill part of it, which is like the end process, but I think there's like, you need to allow this sort of channel, and this channel has to be as clear as possible, and you've got to not let any distractions get in the way, and those distractions might be all sorts of things. It could be your mind can distract you from it, but you're trying to like access this purest emotion that you can, and there's so much that can get in the way of that. And I think when you're young, there's less to get in the way of it. So I think often people write their best songs when they're at the start of their careers. I think the music industry gets in the way of it. I think success can get in the way of it. I think failure can get in the way of it. I think everything, like wanting to be someone that you're not, being contrived, but I think occasionally people just tap into it and they just have this like clear channel. Someone like Amy Winehouse is the perfect example, like probably couldn't even explain it if you asked her, but just managed to tap into this thing.
I was going to ask you what makes a great songwriter, and you've pretty much explained it.
Right.
But from your point of view.
From my point of view,
no one's ever going to know exactly what it takes to make a great songwriter.
And I think anyone can do it as well.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean, increasingly, I just think it's about communication. The great songs that people love are the ones that communicate something very clearly and very evocatively.
Great word.
Great word, yeah.
What was the first one for you?
The first song that did that?
Yeah.
I genuinely can't remember.
Is there a song that you could just pick out knowing that it might not have been the first one, but it's one that I treasured quite a bit?
It's not quite answering your question right, but I'd say there was a point, I remember when I was about 9 or 10, when, and this is probably more for my sister, strangely, I'd say I'm answering the question for her, but I remember walking past the living room multiple times over the course of a month when I was about 9, and my sister would sit cross-legged in front of the TV, and whenever Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You came on, she would sit there and listen to it and just be hypnotised by it. And for years, that's the song she would listen to.
Yeah.
I remember once going in there into the living room and watching it, and watching her watching it, and for a moment understanding the power of it and feeling that weight that Sinead would put on your shoulders, which was just immense vulnerability. But then there's lots, there's lots of songs. But that song by Sinead O'Connor is like, I don't know, it's just remarkable.
It is quite a remarkable song.
I just think what she channeled, I think that's what I meant at the start of the songwriting. You don't necessarily get better. I think you have a moment where you might just channel the entire planet's sadness. And I think Sinead O'Connor managed to do that. and in that song, and whether she then did it again or she did it before that, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even her song, it was Prince's song. But, you know, occasionally, I think like when I watched Joni Mitchell sing California, and there's an old BBC footage of it, and I watched that, and that would make me cry as well.
Yeah.
Nina Simone singing I've Got Life. And the footage is amazing. I mean, they should shoot shows like that on the BBC now. I don't know if it's on the BBC, but it wasn't, I don't think. But that's the thing, is like someone else could have sung that song and been as good a singer, but it was that time.
Emotion. Yeah.
And it was like you believed the words, and
Yeah.
she's saying it. And that is just, I don't know, it blows my mind.
How different is it, you know, from when you first went on a stage and performed, whether it be at the open mics or, you know, the start of your career, to now performing your music on stage as one person?
Yeah.
So intense and...
Yeah. I feel much more confident now and much more sort of in control to some degree.
Still quite vulnerable?
Vulnerable, yeah.
Yeah. So then when you put it all, you know, sort of pen to paper and put it out there for not only those people who are a part of your personal life, but the whole world, and you kind of think, okay, they're going to hear all of my vulnerability now. Is that nerve-wracking? Because you think I've been so, or not as vulnerable outside of music, and then they get to hear it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how, I don't really think about that, to be honest with you. I don't think about that much.
You remember that time we had that argument and I didn't cry about it? Here's a song.
Yeah, about it.
About it. So are you quite a firm believer in you should, you know, not should, but it's probably better to write about what you know because it's easier, it flows more, you know, you can get a bit more creative with it. But then I suppose I think
you can only really write about what you know.
Right.
But
no, some people write, you could probably write about being in the club and popping bottles.
Yeah, but...
Do you go to the club and pop bottles?
Honey.
Come on. Come on. I've got awards.
Do I?
I'm on a velo out here.
Yeah, just a bloody bit. Like, I just got back from the club now. I mean, what time is it? It's 10:15 in the morning.
God.
Like, where do you think I've been?
Definitely in the West End.
Yeah, but I could write about the club. I could write about it because I think I have witnessed it, and you know, to some degree I've experienced it. But I think you know, there's lots people can write about. But could I write about giving birth?
That's true. I mean,
no.
We are getting into the future now.
But I have no idea what it's like to give birth. Like,
no.
Zero. I mean, my sister gave birth last week, right?
Congratulations.
She She had a son.
You had a nephew.
She born a nephew. And I could ask her a million questions. Maybe I could write about giving birth.
Yeah. Well, you write about being an uncle, and then she could probably feel the emotion through that about having a son, but maybe not physically write about giving birth. Unless you were a birthing, but I don't know. You could. That's why people write for other people. You know, ghost writing. Yeah. Never say never, Tom.
Never say never.
Never say never.
I think I could imagine if I really tried. I think a huge part of songwriting is also imagining. Like, it's boundless amounts of empathy. That's what it takes to be a songwriter. I'm constantly trying to understand what it feels like to be someone else.
I thought you were going to say constantly trying to understand what it feels like to give birth.
So. I was last week, genuinely. I was trying to work out what it was like. I asked her lots of questions.
Whilst it was happening?
Not whilst it was happening.
Okay, I thought, gosh, you'd be the worst birthing partner.
I did actually ask if I could be there, and they said no. But I was away anyway. I was in Amsterdam.
Popping bottles.
Popping bottles in the club.
Da club.
Everybody in the club get tipsy.
What happened to him? I want to take...
Is that 50 Cent?
No,
Is that?
No, it's not. It's Jaquan.
Jaquan.
Yeah.
I have a vivid memory of being in Guildford, actually, and dancing to that song.
Really?
Yeah.
Drunk,
And I always thought it was everybody in the club get tips. I thought they were talking about the waitresses because I was a waiter for a while.
Right.
And I was like, everybody in the club get tips. And I was like, yeah, tips for the waiters. Not tipsy. You've had enough.
Calm down. It works, though. Did you get tips from that?
No.
Okay, that's a shame.
No. No tips.
No tips at all.
Yeah.
But tipsy, yes.
Yeah.
I just mentioned the Ivor Novello. Or just briefly, just slid it in there.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Oh,
firstly.
thanks. Yeah.
Secondly, I wanted to You've probably heard this before when someone says, oh, way back when, did you ever think that you would win an Ivor Novello? And I feel like the answer is, well, no, I didn't.
Right, yeah.
Because I would have never thought that I would sit in a room, have this conversation with you. Very privileged.
Right.
Very privileged.
Yeah, it's not.
You
it's
are.
Not that big deal. Yeah. There's a lot of better things you could do with your time, let's be honest.
In the club.
Yeah, exactly. We could both be in the club.
Right?
Yeah.
But was there any point where you feel like, actually, I'm going to aim towards something, whether it be a number one, the Brits Critics' Choice?
Yeah.
I'm just reeling them all off here.
Yeah.
Ivor Novello. Is there one point where you think, actually, this is what I'm going to aim towards?
No. And if I'm being really honest, like I had very modest ambitions and still do, actually. Like I remember when I was 19 and I was playing piano and bars and stuff, and I don't actually remember how, but I ended up playing keyboard for this girl. She was called Georgia Roof. She played the harp and sang, and I was in her band. And I remember we went to Green Man Festival, and it was the first festival I ever went to, and I had like the wristband and everything, and I camped, and it just pissed it down for 3 days. And we played to a crowd of like 40 people, and I remember coming off stage and going, I've made it. Like genuinely, I was like, this is the dream. Like I'm playing at a festival in front of 40 people. Like I'm not even being facetious. Like I genuinely was enthralled by that.
But I think now that we can be like, oh wow, the crowd that you perform to now it's definitely expanded a lot. But it's still wonderful.
But I never believed I could even do this as a job. And so being in someone else's band was just incredible. And then after that, when I first started doing shows and actually people started coming to them like a year or year and a half later or something, like that was just, what? And then, when I found out that, someone wanted to give me a record deal, I was like, what? That can't be, what?
Do you still have those moments now?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do, definitely. I mean, like, we're doing Jonathan Ross tomorrow, right?
Yes.
And like,
that is a what moment.
I know, and we've done Jonathan Ross twice before, okay?
Yeah.
And done lots of TV shows, probably done 50 TV shows around the world. I did one last night, right? And I genuinely I was like, are you sure they want me on Jonathan Ross? When my manager called me up and said, you're doing Jonathan Ross. And I still feel shocked that anyone likes my music.
Yeah. I can't imagine what it felt like when the EP was out and literally a month or so after it was Jules Holland performing.
Yeah.
That must have been...
You really know your Tom Odell timeline. Very impressive.
But I can create Tom Odell top trumps.
Yeah.
Glow in the dark, special edition.
Yeah. But no, I genuinely mean that. And like, I'm not much of sort of a tactician in the way that I probably would be a lot more successful if I saw the bigger picture more and like planned and said, I want to be this big and I want to win all these awards and I want to do that, because I don't ever think that. I really just take each week as it comes. And
do you think that is the recipe, though, for success?
I think that's the recipe for being very mentally ill at some point. Right. And because eventually that won't happen. But I would say that my ambitions have always been very modest, and I always have been very thrilled with the modest success I've had. Like,
Is this rumour true that you could thank Lily Allen for getting you a record deal?
And she signed me, yeah.
Okay.
She had an imprint on Columbia.
Right, okay.
Which is not an imprint anymore. I'm just on Columbia now. But yeah, she signed me. The record label was called In the Name Of. They had one other band called Colts. And and they had an act called Freddie Dixon as well. But Colts were great. Do you know if you remember?
No, I don't think I remember.
Kind of like
Colts.
shoegazy indie.
Okay.
But yeah, she signed me. She came to my gig. I was at Ronnie Scott's. I played upstairs.
Yeah.
It's like 2000.
Classic place, classic venue.
Yeah. It was 2010. I did Ronnie Scott's in the upstairs bar. And what was really funny is my uncle is nuts, right? And he was living in London then. He lives in Australia now. But I remember him coming. He's barking mad, my uncle, but amazing. One of the most amazing people I know. I called him Mad Uncle Graham. He calls himself Mad Uncle Graham. And I always remember that memory of like doing Ronnie Scott's, and he was in the corner of Ronnie Scott's, I think whilst I was playing, and he's a university lecturer, and he was marking papers. No. And he had all these papers like random. He was marking papers, and then he had like all these like people like these young people like just drinking around him. He's
his own world.
He's just marking in the middle. Anyway, and then Lily Allen's there as well, and she's offering me a record deal, and he's just there like,
what a surreal moment.
yeah. And also that was the first, like, I'd never been around fame. Like my family, like we're from like suburban, we're on the suburbs of a town called Chichester, a city called Chichester. And I feel like some people grow up in London, like, you know.
Well, there's famous people walking everywhere.
Yeah, and you have an uncle who's best friends with
Yeah.
Rhys Ifans or something. And everyone's like, you know, so suddenly you're like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, fame, I don't care, like whatever, fame, like who cares? Like I know Rhys Ifans kind of, so it's fine. Whereas me, like my touch with fame was like, I once walked past Shane Warne, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah, the cricketer, and that was like the extent of like my brush with fame. So you can imagine like standing opposite Lily Allen.
Yeah, when she's trying to offer you a record deal.
Yeah, and she's like, you know, I might sign you to a record deal. I was like, my jaw was just on the floor. I remember driving home that night in my grandmother's Skoda Fabia, which she had loaned me, and I was like sleeping in, and I was living in it pretty much, and thinking like, oh, I think things are about to change.
Yeah.
And that's when we should cut to a break there.
Yeah, that was set up for a break.
I think things are about to change.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of covers.
Yeah.
From really love the 1975.
Oh, really? Yeah, everyone seems to like that one. Yeah.
Well, I want it to be original.
Yeah.
I'll go for the Mike
The
Posner one.
sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I think I made it a lot better. Let's be honest.
Put that on the record. So when you hear a song for the first time,
yeah,
do you know when you kind of like, I want to cover that one, or I want to do that, I want to put my own spin on that?
No.
Do you go out when you want to do a cover? Do you go out and sort of find which one you want to do? How does it work?
If I'm being really honest,
you get given it, don't you?
And no, I don't get given it. It's always usually for radio.
Right. Okay.
And that sounds really unromantic, but usually it'll be like, you know, either that Live Lounge or any rate, you know, because we do quite a few around the world. You know, sometimes can you do a cover? And you go, oh, okay. And I really enjoy it. And I sit down at the piano and I'll go through 15 songs, or it might be a song that I like, and I go, oh, I'll try and work that out. But sometimes it's like there's this song by Sigrid that I love, and I always bang on about, but it's called High Five. I don't know if you know.
No, I haven't listened to that one.
It's like beautiful chords, and then I tried to learn that as a cover, and it didn't work. Like I couldn't sing it because her voice is kind of nuts.
Yeah,
like high.
She's so talented.
So it's weird which ones work and which ones don't. I think the best covers are when you can somehow make them different to what they were,
as if they were your
or just
your piece.
The ones that I think were an easy way of doing it is like, I remember doing a bunch of Taylor Swift ones like right at the start of my career, and that was really easy because they were very sort of, because she's a real country songwriter, the lyrics were great and they were very clear, but it had this big pop production, Max Martin production. So if you strip all that away and just do it as a sort of singer-songwriter song, there's a real song there. So do you know what I mean? So it's quite easy to do, and you can also add a sort of emotional, I don't know, like she sings I Knew You Were Trouble When You Walked In, which is quite sort of almost flirtatious. She sings it almost flirtatiously. But if you sing it in another way, it can sound quite dark. You know, like, I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
I just feel like I need to understand.
Does that not make sense?
Yeah. So if you...
So she says, like...
Go on, I know you want to sing it.
No, she's like... She's kind of like, I knew you were trouble when you walked in. You know, it's like kind of like...
That's very sassy.
It's sassy.
Yeah.
It's like, and she's quite sassy, you know?
Yeah.
Another way of doing it is kind of like a sort of dark version, which is sort of like, you know, I knew you were trouble as soon as you walked in. I knew it.
So why did I?
I need more emphasis on the knew. It's like, I hate myself for it. I knew. Yeah. I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
Okay. I get it now.
I've made them laugh.
Yeah. I knew. Okay.
I don't know. I think that's just what it's, you know, it's just saying it slightly differently. But I like that when you can just twist the line, and I think that's what's so great about songwriting. So
yeah.
You can twist.
I've been doing karaoke very wrong.
Yeah, but you don't have much control with karaoke because you're playing along to a backing track. So you can't change the emphasis.
Not wrong. I'll start doing a karaoke acoustic from now on.
Yeah. Sometimes I think I'm better at talking about songwriting than I am about songwriting.
I beg to differ.
Really, I'm not that good at talking about music either.
No, we You've talked about previously being sort of influenced by the greats, late greats, current greats.
Yeah.
So what albums do you go back to, or what artists?
Well, they're quite bizarre, really.
I like Bizarre.
There's lots of them. There's a greatest hits or the great retrospective or something by a band called Supertramp.
Okay.
That are like, I can just listen to forever. Because I listened to it when I was a teenager a lot. I'm obsessed with Joan Armatrading. And there's an album, her first album, Whatever's For Us, which is produced by Gus Dudgeon, who did all Elton's albums as well. And that album, for me, it's just like, I think I'm answering your question with albums that make me feel good.
Right.
So they're the albums I like listen to like when I'm tired or, you know, like I just want to be caressed by music.
Right.
Held.
Yeah.
Embraced. Musically.
Within the last few years, who do you feel...
Last few years?
Yes, has made a great British album.
Well, I think the obvious ones, like Amy Winehouse.
Right. Which one?
Back to Black. But I like the first one as well. Yeah, Frank.
Great album.
I think the only reason I'd say that is because I've heard the second album so much. I think the second album is a masterpiece, like an absolute masterpiece. What else do I think is great British album? I don't think there's been a good one for a few years.
Okay.
Like, I think Adele's amazing, but I don't think her album's like classic.
Right. What does it take to be a classic album? Is it time or is it content?
I think it's content. I think a classic album that's like huge, that also has like a richness to it. Like a Michael Jackson album's like huge, right? But there's also like, you just keep burrowing in.
Right.
And you keep finding stuff. Or like a Stevie Wonder album, like Inner Visions or Songs in the Key of Life. Those albums, like, I don't know, you just keep going. You can listen to it forever. And that's why 50 years later it's still being listened to.
Yeah.
I think that's the same for Amy Winehouse album.
Okay.
But also maybe like the idea of like the classic album is fading. Maybe it's not so much about that sort of definitive magnum opus. You know that thing?
No, I don't.
It's like your sort of career-defining work.
Right,
it's the one you're known for. So for Amy Winehouse, we'd like Back to Black.
Yeah.
But maybe you don't have that now. And maybe, you know, with the things like mixtapes and EPs, and maybe you don't so much have this sort of one vinyl record that's like the thing. And some brilliant artists, I don't think, do ever have it. They just have lots of brilliant songs.
Standalones, yeah.
Yeah, songs, and they have their nice greatest hits at the end of it.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. I do love a greatest hits.
Yeah.
So what does the future hold, Tom?
Oh, God.
I know. It's so intense, isn't it? Obviously, the new album.
Yes.
Which is going to have to sit with people for a while.
Yeah.
How long is it going to sit with us for? And then what kind of comes after that? Because I bet you're quite knackered.
No, I got like a few
hours.
Few things I'm excited about doing next.
Okay. It's very cryptic.
Yeah. No, I'm just like excited at the moment. I really enjoy making music, creating.
Yeah. Heading towards Christmas time now.
Yeah.
Anything around Christmas?
No. I mean, I'm just touring. So I'm touring till December, and then we have a month off, and then we start touring again in January.
Okay.
I mean, we're doing like another 5 weeks in Europe, and then I think going back to America, and then I don't know. There's talk of like an Asian run.
Wow.
So, and then we'll do festivals all through the summer. Comes
around fast.
Yeah, so I think we'll be quite busy playing shows next year. But it's actually nice when you're doing shows and you're touring, you're not so much promoting an album as heavily as I am now.
Right.
Is I can actually work on other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like on the road and stuff. So I look forward to that. At the moment, I can't. It's so intense, I can't write. Or I flew back from Berlin last night and I tried to do a bit of writing on the plane, and my mind's just like, no, like forget it. And I feel like I was excited by this idea I had, and just brain's just dead, which I hate feeling like that, because it's too much talking bollocks. Like, by the talking thing I mean I'm just like constantly talking about this album, and so it's like I can't really write at the moment, but I'm really looking forward to writing again.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah,
I know I am.
Oh, that's very sweet of you.
Tom, thank you for joining me on the podcast, The Brits That Made Me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Did we talk about enough Brits that made me?
Yeah, I think we did.
I don't know if we did.
We mentioned a few.
We mentioned... Who did I mention?
But you're the Brit, and the Made Me stuff was definitely
I talked about lots of Made Me stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just having to be like a British artist. I talked a lot about my grandmother. She was a Brit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That is The Brits That Made Me.